Hey guys, it's Vicky, also known as Vicky as a Hufflepuff, and today I'm going to be talking about why the Prisoner of Azkaban doesn't really make sense, and I guess time travel in general in the Harry Potter universe. Now, I understand that time travel is never going to be something that you can write a story for and it'd be perfect and it'd be like flawless and have nothing wrong with it. I think time travel is a very complex thing to delve into, and I know J.K. Rowling has spoken about this, and I'll link the Pottermore article in the description. She does say that she doesn't regret writing the book, but the time turner is something that I guess it's like that's why she had to destroy them in the next two books, because it could just solve everything. Well, not really, which is what I'm going to go into. But yeah, time travel is always going to be something that's really hard to write a story for, and the thing about Harry Potter is that it's different to other stories about time travel because it's a fantasy story and not a science fiction story. Now, where you have Doctor Who and Back to the Future, that's science fiction, and there's some sort of science technical thing behind it. Obviously it's not true, it's fictional, science fiction, so you can't actually do it, but it could be plausible, if people could work on things like it. But Harry Potter's a completely different thing because it's fantasy, and the time travel in Harry Potter is on a singular timeline, and that's something that I always liked, and that's why when the Cursed Child came about, I didn't particularly like it. I know I haven't spoken about this in full, but the story of Cursed Child I don't like it that much. I would love to see it, but I don't particularly like the story, and that's because it is supposed to be on a singular timeline, and you can see this at the end of Prisoner of Azkaban when they save Buckbeak, and you see how he cuts the pumpkin, and that's what they heard and saw. So basically Buckbeak was never dead, so it's a singular timeline, which means I have a little diagram which I drew for Hermione's classes, but it works either way, so I'll just show you it. Ignore the top bit, but I'm gonna just cover that like that. But so if these are hours, and the little dashes, I'm not sure how well you can see that, but if the dashes are hours and the dots are the different points in time where she goes to, that means that all three of them are happening simultaneously. So when she goes back in time, it's not creating a different timeline, it's all on the same timeline, which is essentially cloning herself, which you can see in the film and in the book when especially in the film, she sees herself, and she's well, it can't be, they can see themselves because it's basically just cloning themselves and going back in time. But it always happened because Harry always got hit with that little stone, as you see. It always happens, so it's not they go back and change anything. That's what I like about it. It's very confusing to explain, but if you see what I mean, here, it's she goes back and she goes back to this point and goes just to a different place. So she, I was trying to explain this to my dad and we were having a discussion about it, and he was saying so she could look through the window and see herself. I'm essentially that is how it works, and that you do see that when they go and try and rescue Buckbeak. They can see themselves, but they just have to hide because, it's very dangerous to meddle with time. And obviously, Hermione knows about the time turner, but it's still quite dangerous, and they don't want to delve into all of that. So, essentially, time travel is safe to use if used correctly, and if you only go back a couple of hours. And I was trying to work out about Hermione's classes, and so you don't get a lot of the details in the book. I would love to have her full timetable. I was trying to look through the book. I'm not sure if I missed anything, so if I did, I apologise. If I miss anything, I will do an updated version of this video. But we do know, Ron says, Hermione, they've messed up your timetable. Look, they've got you down for about 10 subjects a day. There isn't enough time. Emphasis on time. See, this morning, 9 o'clock, divination, and underneath, 9 o'clock, Muggle studies. And look, underneath that, arithmancy, 9 o'clock. And then he was I know you're good, but you're not that good. So we do know that she has those 3 classes happening at the same time. And I was thinking, if she had a double lesson of something, and she had to go back and do some, a single lesson over the top, that would get kind of, muddled and confusing, seeing as, she would have to go back extra hours, basically. She would have to go, 2 hours instead of 1 hour. I also decided to do a bit of some maths and work out how much older she would be at the end of the year. And I spent quite a lot of time on this. So assuming every class is an hour, which I think is correct, even though one time it says after potions for an hour and a half, I mean that each lesson is 45 minutes, but then throughout you see it says like after an hour for a few times, so I assume that every class is an hour. If it's not, it won't be off by that much. I looked up how many weeks were in 1993. Now I realise that is slightly incorrect, as the school year goes from September to June, yeah, but it won't be far off because it's usually around 54 weeks anyway. So I took 54 weeks and then I worked out how many weeks they would get off in total. So they would get around 8 weeks off for summer because it's 2 months, and then they would get a total of 3 weeks for holidays, so 1 week for Easter, 2 weeks for Christmas. So that's 11 weeks off, so then that's 42 weeks of school about. So if she had on average 3 extra hours a day, at the end of the school year she would be 26.25 days older, which is quite a lot. So obviously if you use time travel frequently, that can potentially be quite, well, dangerous, I guess. You can age a lot faster than a normal person. So for instance, if she did that every year, I know she couldn't have done it in like first and second year, but if she did that every year, then that would be like, it would be that times, was it like 4, I guess? So that's about like 4 months older than she's supposed to be, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it is if you think about it, especially if she's young, and then she, you know, people can like grow over a summer. So I mean that is like potentially quite a lot. It wouldn't be that damaging. People wouldn't really notice as like she's a kid. Now the thing that always interested me the most, and I always thought was like a massive plot hole, and weirdly I've never actually heard anyone talk about it. I think I mentioned it to my friend and she agreed with me, but I've never heard anyone talk about it. Maybe it's not a massive deal, or maybe I'm just like, why doesn't this make sense? But it's the fact that Hermione just appears in the classes, and you know what I mean, like when they're in divination and then she just appears or something, and then they're all like, where does she come from? And then Ron's just like, where does she come from? Like, she wasn't here a second ago. Like, they don't see her walk in the room, like she just like appears there. And I get that from like J.K. Rowling's point of view when she was writing it. It would be like, you know, to drop hints throughout the book, and then like to drop hints throughout, and then at the end you'd be like, oh, that's why she was like appearing in the classes. But it just doesn't make sense. Like, if it's on a singular timeline, then that means that, so say if classes are an hour and she finished arithmancy and she wanted to go to ancient runes, then, you know, class would end after an hour, she'd turn it back an hour and she'd end up in the same place, then she'd have to walk to class. Now I was going to say, if the whole thing of her going back an hour meant she was late, then she wouldn't appear, she would still have to walk in late. So even if she was late, she'd have to walk in late. But if you think about it, everyone else has to walk to classes as well, not just her. So the time that like, so when she appears, she would still have time to walk there because everyone else would be walking there as well, because she would go back when the class just finished. So I don't know why she would appear in classes. That's the thing that always didn't make sense to me at all. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe someone can explain it to me, but I've explained it to a few people and they've all completely agreed with me, because it just doesn't make sense. If it's a singular timeline, that means if Hermione is late, she was always late. And if she was on time, she was always on time. She can't just appear, like, it's not a different timeline. That, like, if she appeared, then that would be like, mean there was like a different timeline, and she went back and created, like, so she finishes the class and then when she creates a new timeline, so instead of the diagram I had earlier with the straight line, it would be another line underneath with the class and another line underneath with the next class. But instead it's all on one line and they're just all on top of each other, happening at the same time. So essentially she, like, that just doesn't make sense to me at all. If it's a singular timeline, then they should see her all the time, you know? Like, she can't just appear out of nowhere, because that doesn't happen normally unless she was apparating. But you know, she's in third year, she doesn't apparate, and you can't do that in Hogwarts. So that doesn't add up to me. And I understand that writing about time travel would be very difficult, and and honestly props to J.K. Rowling for trying to do it, because I think it did very well, because I always really liked it, and I always loved the whole singular timeline thing, because I like the film Back to the Future a lot. I think it's a very good film, but I think when, like, it's a good story, but if I had to choose a certain version of time travel to have, I would choose to have a singular timeline, because then it gets too complicated with all these like parallel timelines going on. You know, you could accidentally, like, you know, the whole stepping on the butterfly thing for the butterfly effect and then changing the course of history. I don't like that. I think if someone has to travel back in time, it should have always been like that, and that's what I liked about time travel in Harry Potter, and I'm pretty sure in Doctor Who it's like that as well. My knowledge on Doctor Who isn't as great as Harry Potter, because I haven't researched it as much, and I think there's just a lot to go into because it's science fiction, it's very technical, but I'm pretty sure it's like that because, you know, how Bill's, I think it was it Bill? Oh yeah, I think it was Bill when she was like, oh, what if I step on a butterfly? And then he's always like, what? That doesn't change anything. Like, I like that. But at the same time, Doctor Who's very also like parallel stuff. I know it happens in the episode Turn Left. I'm not going to get to Doctor Who, but in Turn Left, that thing happens with the thing on Donna's back, and, you know, like, she turns a different way. But that wasn't the TARDIS, that was like an alien thing. So, like, I like how it is in Harry Potter and Doctor Who. I just think in Harry Potter there are mistakes with it, and the thing is, I think these mistakes could have been fixed. So I don't want to be like, oh, I'm better than J.K. Rowling, because I'm not. I can't write anything. But, like, I think if she did the time travel so it was the same, but Hermione didn't appear late to classes. And I understand the whole thing, you need to have clues about it, because then it's the reveal was just kind of like, oh, because otherwise there's no big kind of realisation. It's just kind of like, oh, is she? Like, I would have never guessed. But I guess the timetable thing also gives that away. I know that wasn't in the film, but, like, in the timetable, you know, he's like, how are you getting to these classes that all start at 9 o'clock? So I think that could have been okay, but I guess that, like, I do understand the whole, like, giving clues throughout. I think that makes sense, and I think that's good. But yeah, I just think that it is flawed, and I'm just kind of confused as to why I haven't heard people talking about her appearing in class thing. Maybe people have and I just haven't noticed, but I honestly have never heard anyone say anything about that. I've only heard people agree with me when I bring it up, but I don't know if it's just a kind of a minor thing that everyone's just kind of like, like, it's not perfect, and I understand it's not perfect. It's not bashing J.K. Rowling or anything for this, like, mistake, because I do understand, even she said about it. Yeah, like I said, I will link it down below when she was talking about it. But yeah, I want to go into this way more, and I wanted to do a lot more research, but I couldn't. So I probably will do one in the future, kind of like a revised one, and then just kind of go into it a bit more. I think Hermione was doing 3 extra classes than Harry and Ron, so, like, pretty much everyone else, she was doing 3 more classes, which, like, between her and, so she was doing Muggle Studies, Ancient Runes and Arithmancy that Harry and Ron weren't doing, and those are the 3 that she had to, like, get to. So that's why I did the 3 hours a day. I know she wouldn't have the same lessons every day, but I tried to do, like, an average thing for, like, the age. But yeah, I think that's interesting. I think it's very problematic. Like I said before about not really liking Cursed Child, I don't want this to be like a hate and Cursed Child video. I'm just going to say quickly, like, it just kind of proves it's not really, you can't consider it canon because it's not written by J.K. Rowling, and she doesn't even really like the concept of time tenders. She didn't want to go into it too much more, which is why she destroyed them all. And then they just brought them back, and I understand, like, that it's like a new thing, but the thing that I liked about it was that it's a singular timeline. I just think it gets too messy when you have too many different, like, parallel timelines to each other, and it just gets so confusing. And I didn't like how the story was just them kept going back in time, messing more things up. Like, I think that there's the whole thing about awful things have happened to wizards who've made up of time, and that you shouldn't go back more than a few hours, because I think that would be very dangerous if you did. And that's just why I don't really like it, because I just think they were very reckless when they did go back in time, and they went back so many times and just messed everything up. I just don't really think it's a good story. Anyway, like, this video was about time travel, so yeah, I mean, I don't really know what this was. This wasn't really a theory video because I wasn't theorising about anything. I was more just kind of trying to work things out and explaining things. So I'll probably do another video about kind of time travel and Harry Potter in the future, when I've kind of looked into it more, and I'll do some, like, more research and stuff on it. But yeah, if you want to see that, then please tell me in the comments. Also tell me if you want to see more videos like this, you know, theories, explanations, stuff like that, and also tell me what you would want me to talk about or make a theory on. So yeah, give this video a thumbs up if you did like it, subscribe if you did, and if you want to see more Harry Potter related videos. Also check out all my social medias, the links will all be in the description. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.